It's Thursday, October 15th, and welcome to the New York Amsterdam News Podcast. I'm Cyril Josh Barker. On this week's episode, my guest is anti-violence advocate A.T. Mitchell, who is the founder and executive director of the nonprofit organization Man Up Inc. He's going to be speaking with me about the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March. October 16th marks 25 years since the Million Man March took place in Washington, D.C. in 1995. The event was a large gathering on the National Mall of African American men called by Minister Louis Farrakhan. The march was organized by the National African American Leadership Summit led by Dr. Benjamin Chavis Jr. The event was a call to black men to return to their neighborhoods and acknowledge, unify, organize, and build. To commemorate a quarter century since the march, a gathering is being organized in Brooklyn to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge and rally at the African Burial Ground in Foley Square in Lower Manhattan. A.T. Mitchell is one of the organizers of the Million Man March commemoration, and he's on the phone with me right now to discuss the event. Welcome to the podcast, A.T. How are you?
I'm much better now, Josh. I'm speaking with you.
Well, thank you so much. Well, listen, the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March, and, such a long time. I remember in 95, I was only 12 years old when it happened the first time. But I remember in 2005, I actually went to the 10-year anniversary when I was visiting Howard University at the time. I was in college. And here we are, 25 years later, the Million Man March. First, tell us your story about the Million Man March. Were you there? Did you participate? Tell us.
Oh, no. Yes, man. Oh, no doubt about it, brother. 1995, man. Time does fly, though. To me, it's 25 years, right? It's a quarter of a century. But also, it seems like yesterday, to be honest with you, when you're very busy, as we are out here doing the work, time does fly, So I was 25 years younger like you. I could not let that day go by me without boarding those buses. I was 29 years old, 28, actually. I would have been 29 that same year in November. And I was already a youth activist. I was already on the ground doing some work in my community. I was learning from some of the great leaders of the city today, and that I was just fortunate. But at the same time, when the minister made that call, I had to be there, and so I made my way. I went with my local church group, who I'm very proud to say, the St. Paul's Community Baptist Church. Reverend Johnny Ray Youngblood was the pastor, and they had a very strong men ministry. And so I rolled out with them, man, and we made our way out there, brother, and I'm so glad I did, because it was like, it changed my life, brother. It changed my life, man, even to this day.
And give us some more detail about what the environment was like, because we've seen pictures, we've seen video. I wasn't there, but tell us what it was like.
Brother
what was
Josh, it was epic. It was a sight, man, for I can't even really describe it. It was something that was straight out of the history books, man. And you could see that there was something else going on that had a lot to do with the amount of men that actually responded. There were hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of men everywhere you turned. And it was black men everywhere, brother. When I say literally in the trees, literally hanging and sitting and finding like a place to see the actual screen or the minister's podium in the trees, brother. And just to be out there, everybody was cordial, mad, respectful. I never ate so good in my life. Everybody was, was offering each other's food. So much brotherly love, man. It was just something that I always am going to be proud to say that I was a part of that. And then we discovered when we got back that we exceeded the Million Man call. That it actually said it was up to 2 million men that possibly, turned out, man. It was, I'm glad to have been a part of the history books.
Definitely a historic event. Well, here we are 25 years later, and it's just interesting that a lot of the problems that we were dealing with back in 1995 are still very relevant today. First, I know that there's an event that's going to be happening on Friday. Tell me a little bit about the event. What's going on?
No question about it. It's like you said, it's almost like we find ourselves right back at the same place back in 95. We were dealing with some real issues then in our community, in our streets. And as we know it today, this year, 2020, when you look at, the pandemics that we've been fighting. I'm going to say pandemics because, we dealt with COVID and we've been dealing with COVID, but at the same time, there's been a pandemic of violence that we've also been addressing. And so we find ourselves almost like right back where we were 25 years ago. So we have to repeat what we did 25 years ago. We have to come back out actually together as men. We've been organizing, as you know, for the last 3 months since the 1-year-old DeVale Gardner Jr. was shot and killed, unfortunately, in Bed-Stuy this year, when the summer months was beginning and the violence was on a climb. We've been organizing. There's been men of the Nation of Islam. It's been one of our co-partners, our other nonprofit grassroots organizations that's involved with the Kill Violence Global work, the crisis management system work, organizations that are street groups. There's so many different kinds of people that come together. Men who are doctors and lawyers and social workers and teachers have been joining us in these last 3 months to organize around this day. So we are extremely confident that the 500 Men Time 5 movement will be launched, and we will be confident that we will be able to deploy, like we did back in '95, a cadre of men who are willing to commit themselves back into the community. And that's what we got to do. We got to take back our communities, Josh.
Right. And of course, this event this year takes on another meaning because of the events that have happened in 2020, including the COVID-19 pandemic, but also most notably the police killing of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others. Yes. How is that going to be coming into play in the event for this year? Well,
one, we're going to be very safe and we're going to be very mindful of the pandemic that we're still in. So we're stressing public health and awareness. We're going to be out there. We're going to have to make sure everybody's masked up. But as you said, the issue that we've seen happen this year, in addition to the George Floyd, the Breonna Taylors, of the world, it has been an issue that we've been combating, as you know it, for hundreds of years in this country. Certainly in the last decades, I've been on the front line with the other leaderships combating police violence and misconduct and police brutality and police murder. And then now we have it so that the community I think the nation has also stood up and said, enough is enough. And there's been a lot of social justice movements and launched, and we are rolling right alongside that. The Million Man March was a movement, and now we're going to respark that part where the men of the communities are going to come together and really put their minds together so that we can be able to figure out the best ways that we can address, our issues, not expect for other people to do for us things that we can do for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then also there's the dynamic of the election that's going to be going on here in the country in a few weeks. How is that going to be? How is that going to play into this?
So the 500 by 5 is the name of the coalition, and everything we do is in fives. So we're going to be talking about our 5-point plan tomorrow. One of those points is talking about the politics or the politics. And so with that said, we're going to, of course, be educating people in our community about how more we need to be involved in the process. Our ancestors and our elders, they died for us to have a right to vote. And so we need to exercise our right to vote. There's been a lot of legislation changed. A lot of reform has occurred where people who even have felonies, people who have been formerly incarcerated, can now not only be a registered voter, but can actually vote. So we are going to be looking at GOTV, which is Get Out the Vote. Come this November, we're going to be a force that push to make sure that people are getting out the vote and making sure that we are making a big difference in the up and coming elections, not just for the federal or the presidential, but more importantly, like Malcolm said, more locally, because next year is the mayoral race. Everything, right. Mostly everything in the city is going to change. We want to make sure that those seats in our communities where we live are occupied by people who are bought into our agenda.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then tell us about the event itself, because you're going to be first gathering in Cadman Plaza in Brooklyn and going across the Brooklyn Bridge. Tell us how that's all going to work.
It's going to work out well, man. Rain, snow, sleet, regardless of the weather. we're going to be turning out, man, in Catman Plaza. We're going to begin to start gathering up at about 10 a.m. in the morning. I just left there from just to do a walkthrough, and it's a beautiful park in the heart of Brooklyn at the base of the Brooklyn Bridge on the Brooklyn side. And so we're going to be rallying up, actually, getting our men and our troops together, giving up the marching orders as it relates to how we're going to move out and deploy. And then we're going to take a silent walk over the Brooklyn Bridge. And we're very much stressing that this is not a protest, Josh.
Okay.
This is a movement, a launch of a movement, okay, of men of color who have agreed to come together and put our differences aside. And on a borough by borough basis, we're going to have men that are going to be willing to come together and be able to make some changes and make the right, sort of culture and create the right sort of presence in the community again. So it starts at 10 a.m. We're going to make our way over the Brooklyn Bridge at 12 noon. And then from 12 noon, we're going to get to Foley Square. And that's where we're going to have a speaking lineup of other, like some leaders that have been a part of this work, organizing work, and also some of those of our elected officials and other prominent people to address the men that participated.
All right. And what's the end goal for this? Because, the 25 years since the Million Man March, there was a call to go back to the communities and discuss and dole out what we learned. But what is the goal for this particular event?
Well, it wasn't broken 25 years, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
We are just going to reclaim and really commit ourselves to the same call. We want men to go right back in the same way we did deploy, the way we deployed from D.C. then. We want to be able to do the same thing here in New York City. Our call is the same. We want people to get busy. We don't want people. We want them to come up, get off of their couches, come from behind their TV screens, and really be more actively involved in the neighborhoods that the people actually are coming from, where the issues are really happening, where it's more needed. So, our presence is needed on the ground, Josh. Mm-hmm. And I think that whenever you see community people stepping up in this way, it makes a big difference in the eyes of the general public. It makes a big difference in the eyes of law enforcement, anybody. It makes a big difference in the eyes of the school teachers. When they see that people in community are being more responsible and taking more responsibility to take, control of their own issues, people have no other choice but to respect that.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And lastly, before I let you go, I do want you to talk a little bit about some of the work that Man Up Inc. is doing. Last time I spoke to you was over the summer. A lot has happened since then. Tell us about some of the things that Man Up Inc. is doing.
Man Up Inc., man, I just love the fact that the universe has used me to be its founder. Like I said, man, I was in the number 25 years ago. And I heard the minister talk about Minister Farrakhan. Go back into your neighborhoods and join organizations, and if you don't join one, start, your own. And so who would have figured that 16 years ago I started an organization that will still be around and relevant to this day. We are, for those that don't know, we're not just an all-male organization. Mm-hmm. The word man up is actually a verb. We have men and women and children involved in man up. The word means to just do it, get involved. It's an action word. So we do everything from working with 5-year-olds all the way up to seniors. We have our after-school programs. We have our day school programs. We're inside the juvenile detention center. We're in the hospital. We are on the streets. We're running our own community centers. So we're going to continue to do what we've been doing, Josh, and rev up if anything. But we really want people to become a part of the solution and not part of the problem.
All right. Well, listen, AT, you're always doing wonderful work. I admire it so much. Thank you so much for being on this episode.
It's a mutual admiration, brother. You are my brother. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, man. And, we get the chance to just be able to document some history again. But I appreciate you and all of your journalism experience and your body of work.
All right. Thank you.
Likewise, take it easy. Have a great one.
That concludes this week's podcast. You can pick up the latest edition of the New York Amsterdam News on newsstands and get updates online at amsterdamnews.com. You can also keep up with us on Facebook at NY Amsterdam News and follow us on Twitter at NYAmNews. I'm Cyril Josh Barker. Thanks for listening.